Hello and welcome to this episode of Doors to the Supernatural. Listen closely to this incredible story of an angel. I can tell you the exact date and time I met an angel. It was January 1st, 2007 at 1:05 a.m. At 12:01, my ex-husband and I were hit head-on by a drunk driver who was also on drugs. I was taken by ambulance to the nearest hospital where I was being treated for my injuries, and so was my ex. My blood pressure dropped due to internal bleeding, and I was taken by life flight to a bigger hospital. I was laying in the room strapped to the backboard. Shortly after arriving, a man in a blue hoodie walked into my room and sat beside me. As he reached for my hand, he was telling me about his friend who was in the room beside me suffering from 3 gunshot wounds. He told me not to worry and that my husband was on the way. He was just released from the other hospital. He told me I was going to be okay. He said I would walk again in 6 months and to not be afraid. I closed my eyes and let out my breath. Apparently I had been holding it and didn't realize it. When I opened my eyes, the nurse was walking into my room to check on me. I asked where the man in the blue hoodie had gone. She looked like she had seen a ghost, which scared me. She asked what happened, and I told her what he said about being there with his friend with the gunshot wounds. She proceeded to tell me that the young man in the room beside me had talked about the same man, but he was told he was not going to make it. As I'm talking to the nurse, a code blue came over the intercom for the room next to me. Sadly, he didn't make it, just like the man in the hoodie had said. My ex-husband arrived shortly after, just like the man had said, and I also started walking 6 months later.
Kia Hadegi falsely sought asylum in the UK as a persecuted Christian, even though he was a Muslim, but an encounter with God changed his life. In 1998, I first sought political asylum in Germany, but I didn't know enough about politics to make it through the interview. My case was rejected, and back in France, after a few nights on the street, I saw a truck at a gas station. Something clicked. I left my rucksack behind and grabbed hold of the bars underneath, traveling all the way to England. When I arrived in England, I decided to seek asylum as a persecuted Christian. I even joined a Christian Bible school in Birmingham and was granted free accommodation. I was a great student and blended into the Christian activities of prayer, singing, and Bible study. As a Muslim, I had learned about God and performed my religious duties, but I never knew if God was pleased with my deeds or if I was good enough to go to heaven. I was very aware of the sins in my heart, like lying, jealousy, lust, and stealing. I was so unhappy, deeply lonely, and felt like I had no real identity. During my time at the Bible school, I began reading the Bible in Farsi with the help of other Iranian Christians, and Jesus' character changed me. One week in September of 2000, everything I read in the Bible pointed back to themes of truth, righteousness, and Jesus' invitation to give peace to sinners. I read in John where Jesus says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." I wanted that freedom so badly. My double life was becoming too heavy to bear. One night, I went into my room, closed the door, and wept for hours. I cried until I gave myself a terrible headache. Then I felt the presence of someone in my room, standing behind me with his hand on my left shoulder, saying, "It is enough, go to bed. Tomorrow will be a new day." At that moment, all God's words that I had absorbed from my Bible reading and the Christian activities became alive in my heart and gave me hope. I knew I was a hopeless sinner in need of God's peace and salvation. When Jesus commanded me to stop crying, the sadness in my heart disappeared immediately. At that moment, God's words became alive in my heart and gave me hope. The next day, I decided to tell the truth about my life to whoever would listen. I told the Bible school, my fellow students, and then wrote a letter to the home office, even though it wasn't time for my interview yet. My solicitor warned me I would get deported straight away. But I told the truth to the officer anyway, and she granted me permission to stay in England. I couldn't believe the favor God had gave me. After experiencing God's power in my life, I wanted to serve Him any way I could. Since 2003, I have served God full-time with Agape UK, introducing people to Jesus who have never heard about Him. I married my wife in 2010, and God gave us a vision for a marriage and family ministry. Many Iranian couples face pressures and challenges. Our resources offer support through biblical teachings that open the door to transformation in their lives. We've cultivated a network of church leaders within the Iranian diaspora throughout Europe, the United States, Turkey, and also underground leaders back in Iran. We try to stay attentive to God and the needs of our community, so we can provide biblical resources that Iranians desperately need, and have never had access to before. Christians in Iran are so thirsty for Christian materials. We also have a recording studio in our home where we write and produce video content for satellite TV in Iran. Our teachings are regularly broadcast with more than 6 million views. The leaders we work remotely with in Iran are regularly monitored by the government, but still serve God with boldness. We just want to follow God as He goes ahead of us, showing us what to do next. God is doing something very special in the Iranian community at this time in history, and we give all the glory to Him.
And now for a word of encouragement. Everyone has gone through seasons when they have experienced a sense of limitation. They feel limited financially, limited in their influence and relationships, or perhaps limited in their goals. No one wants to live from year to year feeling as though things are not improving or expanding in their life. We all want to see breakthrough that brings us into a place of greater abundance. We want to go from decrease to increase. As you continually declare increase, expansion, and advancement, those words will enable you to see past life's limitations. Remember, anyone can see the negatives around them, but it takes an anointing to see past that and see the expansion of God before you. Declare and envision your season of advancement and expansion upon you right now. Thank you so very much for joining us for this episode of Doors to the Supernatural. Until next time, God bless.